When people ask me how many children I have, I sometimes have to stop and think, well, what do you mean? I have 3 birth children. I have 2 foreign exchange students who both happen to be from Thailand. And I have 4 foster children that I cared for from 3 months to 2.5 years.
I have a wonderful adoption story. I have 2 wonderful kids that came out of that adoption story that we've been through, and possibly more along the way. But till then, what keeps me busy is the love of children that I have here at Hope Church, being involved with the youth group, with the parent groups that are here.
Well, I am the nursery attendant at Hope Church and a mother of this one, Luna, and I view children are the future, and if we teach them love and gratitude and kindness, then we're building a better world.
So I went into education and decided to be a teacher and worked with special needs kids. So I wanted to make a difference, at least in one child's life. That was kind of my starting goal. So I ended up adopting one of my students and raising him.
And that's why education is so important, and that's why I take pride in my 2 hours every Sunday.
I have been a school teacher for many years, and my thought about working with children is you never ever know what you have done that will hurt or help a person as they grow older. 2 weeks ago, I had a wonderful surprise. It was a phone call from one of my students who is now 51 years old. It was shocking, to say the truth, you know, that I was not expecting this. He purposely called me to thank me for teaching him how to read and let me know that he was doing well.
Well, I have always worked with children in scouting and at church schools, and I've enjoyed being active with the kids in my own family.
This was a student that hadn't done well in school. He had some behaviorisms that weren't always acceptable. But I guess I accepted him enough that he remembered me and brought up some nice little stories, and we talked for about an hour. It was great.
So when I got the job here in the county as a birth to 3 educator, I got to meet all kinds of little kids under 3 years old. And I worked with their parents and tried to help them see what their child's needs were and help them grow. But I thought, at least this is one person in their child's life who was consistent every week for those 2 to 3 years. And I always tried to smile to them.
I have spent the last 35 years of my professional career working as an advocate and trying to improve things for children in our society through improving child welfare systems and juvenile justice systems. And having done this for 35 years, I could say the things that have probably had the biggest impact on me are seeing how we are able as a society often to disassociate ourselves from the maltreatment of children, often because it's associated with children of color.
Now when I travel on planes, I always carry some little bottles of wetting bubbles, so I can hand those out to children that are having a tough time.
When somehow it's acceptable for us to put children in cages at the border, it's because they really aren't our children. That's the problem. We got to start thinking of those children as our children and thinking about how that would feel for them. So I think that the way to get beyond this is to, as I said, it has to be rooted in love. It has to be rooted in love of children and thinking of others' children like our children.
If you just open your hearts, there's all kinds of children that need all kinds of love from all walks of life. Whether they come from a family with 2 parents, 1 parent, no parents, can always Even the child that's crying in the grocery store needs a sign of love.
When you develop a child and you have two microscopic cells that turn into a person, turn into a being, turn into someone that is just a part of your life, and it goes from that child to the grandchildren. In my case, I'm really blessed with wonderful children and grandchildren. So just that minute of love is developed into something that is so beautiful.
My wife and I created Sunshine House, the Habitat chapter here in Door County.
Well, just in our church alone, with the mission trip that we did, we went to Milwaukee and helped make sandwiches for the homeless, along with interacting and hearing their stories. And then recently we did another canned food drive.
It doesn't necessarily have to happen just here at Hope Church. Great things have happened while we're out grocery shopping and you see somebody that's in stress or in need of something. Sometimes a good, nice little pat on the back, sometimes a look and just let them know it's okay. That goes a long way.
Sunshine House is a handicapped shelter for people who are disabled or having difficulty finding work. And the Habitat also creates low-cost housing on an incentive basis of cooperation between the volunteers and the eligible families. I think we're up to almost 40th home.
I've been fortunate to be involved with the Door County Civility Project, who really is working to promote respectful communication amongst neighbors here in Door County.
I'm involved in the program called Loaves and Fishes, and we serve it's a community meal that we serve 3 dinners a month to the needy, to the lonely, to whoever wants it, and that's why it's called a community meal. We don't require any proof of income or anything.
I have really enjoyed being part of the American Red Cross. It certainly is a way that volunteers can show love of neighbor, whether they're neighbors here in Door County experiencing some sort of disaster or tragedy, or on national deployments where we meet people in faraway places who have lost homes, lost neighborhoods.
We serve a meal on the first, third, and fourth Fridays of every month. It's run by volunteers. It's held at our local college, and it's a love of neighbor.
Well, I am leading a practice in yoga and have done this since 2010. Now we meet on Tuesday mornings, and there's a group of us that like to practice for an hour. So we gather in the fellowship hall and practice and have a number of different themes we address. But we have a very nice group that gets together.
I'm the commandant of the local Marine Corps League. And what that means is we're a private not-for-profit that supports Marines who have served in active duty, who are still serving in active duty. And the love of neighbor with military veterans is that we need to be aware that some people have been asked to do things while they were serving their country that is sometimes very, very difficult for them to forget.
They donate money. They donate about $5 a time or $15 for a month. And the money goes toward building expenses for Hope. And we also devote the money to good causes, the rest of the money, to things like the Boys and Girls Club or to the National Alliance Against Mental Illness or other good causes around town.
And so by supporting that neighbor, we're also supporting the service that they provided our country, and know that they can be a good neighbor, and their training taught them a lot of skills which we would be able to utilize as we continue our love of neighbor.
The League of Women Voters is another organization that I have a lot of respect for. They really promote civic engagement. We encourage people to run for office, vote on election day, and to talk to their elected officials.
Well, I've been very active in the League of Women Voters. I joined that organization when I first moved to town in 1977. And I think it's very good to be involved in the politics and in the government programs so that you know what's going on and so you can have an influence in what goes on in your community and in your country.
I think we all hear the call at one point or another, and if that call it just rings true to you and you hear it and it speaks to you, stop ignoring it, pay attention to it, and if you hear the call, just see what you can do about it.
I think that we should just try and continue to be open-minded and accepting of all people, and really focus on trying to understand their situation and where they're coming from, along with realizing that we're all connected, we're all one race, we're all one people, we're all together, we're the human race.
My love of the creation has been lifelong. I celebrated the first Earth Day in 1970, and ever since. I have a shirt for each decade.
When I was in the Navy, I traveled all over the world, and I saw the beauty of creation, from palm trees to deserts to the ocean itself, and how it moved, and life in itself living within that environment was amazing.
I climbed the Grand Teton in Wyoming. I enjoy the outdoors. I still camp. I don't do a lot of hiking or long distance hiking, but I'll hike to a waterfall if it's not too far.
I grew up in Baraboo, Wisconsin, which is not too different from Door County, but we lived on Devil's Lake, and I've always participated in things that were on the water. I used to be a lifeguard, and so I was a lifeguard at Devil's Lake, and I used to participate in some of the hiking events in the bluffs.
My passion is gardening. I like to share it with the community as a hobby, and my love of creating to sustain the earth. I feel that organic gardening is the best way to promote health, happiness, and sharing with other people.
And as far as in Door County goes, I've lived on Washington Island, and so that I've been very active in the activities there. And of course, living right here in Sturgeon Bay, we live not too far from the water. I seem to always want to live near the water.
Later on in years, I began trying to write books about nature, and I was trying to describe that feeling, but I really didn't know how to say anything or in the right words to get the meaning across to people about what the feeling was all about. Until one day, Sunday, I was sitting in church here listening to a sermon, and I don't usually really listen to sermons when they start to drag on. I'll drift off a little bit. But this particular day, the minister was talking about the mystery of Christ. Was a sermon. That didn't sound really interesting to me to begin with, but somewhere in that sermon he talked about the church being like a club for Christians where everyone's invited, and it's a dance club. Everyone's invited, and you're there, and there's music being played, but it's hidden music. You have to stop and listen for the music to really understand it, to hear it and feel it. And I thought, wow, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. That there's this hidden music in nature that people sometimes just completely miss if they don't listen for it.
There was a bird, a phoebe, that was acting very strangely, and in fact I videoed it because I was so curious about what it was doing, and it looked like it was injured, but I knew it wasn't injured. And from doing some Googling, I discovered that this bird was trying to draw prey away from a chick that had fallen out of the nest. And when I saw this little bird on our deck, I didn't know what to do, but I also did some more Googling and discovered that I could put it back in the nest. And I did that, and it was just such a joy to pick up that little tiny bird and put it back in its nest and then watch to make sure that it didn't come back out of the nest.
It's like the whisper of the wind through the grass, or if you walk through a field of tall grass and mint and you bruise the mint, the smells that come up, and bird songs and things like that. And it goes unnoticed unless you actually look for it and listen to it. The nature is full of that beautiful hidden music.
It made me think about how, you know, everything has its place in nature, and these little fly-catching birds are, you know, picking insects and mosquitoes away from us and keeping them off of other plants that don't need to be eaten, and every little creature has its place in nature.
What we created after having a capital campaign was a space for worshiping outdoors. So we have this beautiful space outside here where in the summertime we have outdoor worship, and it just speaks so much about who this body is at Hope Church. So we have this opportunity to spend a lot of time actually outdoors in the summertime worshiping in creation.